Heyo guys, time for my TNA Sacrifice pay-per-view review. Sacrifice was last night from the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida, so let's get to the review. The show started with a huge announcement. Basically, they showed the limos arriving. They had JB Jeremy Borash interview Kurt Angle, saying that because of what happened with him in South Korea, he would not be wrestling tonight due to that neck injury that occurred to him in that triple threat match in Korea, so he couldn't work tonight. And then they followed it up with the Steiners arriving with Kevin Nash with them, so that was just weird. And then Joe came in. He was just surprised about Nash. And then we went to the very first match of the quarterfinals in the Deuces Wild Tag Team Tournament. Team 3D versus James Storm and Sting. And this match was short, but, you know, it kind of in a bit of time, but really it wasn't the best of matches. But I will say, give props to Sting. He worked hard in this match to make it good. The story here was James Storm didn't want to be Sting's partner after he was in there and he got beat down basically by Team 3D, and he just felt to sit on the floor and drink beer. And then he got up on the top turnbuckle, sat there and was watching after a table got set up by Devine, and Sting just tossed him through there. Devine pinned Storm to eliminate the Sting and James Storm, and Team 3D moves on into the semifinals of the Deuces Wild Tournament. The next match was Robert Roode and his mystery partner of Booker T versus Rhino and Christian Cage. This match was okay. It was a little bit better than the other one. I was disappointed in Roode's work here. I was probably one of the only people who liked his match with Booker T in the mixed tag at Lockdown. But this match, I was disappointed by his work here. There were nice transitions here by Cage and Booker T, as there always have been, but other than that, this was a pretty lackluster match. And the finish came when Rhino got the gore on Robert Roode. It was a mini gore, and then Booker T celebrated with Cage and Rhino, and then we finally figure out what the T in Booker T means when he got a chair, came in, and he turned heel on Cage and Rhino. So this, I don't know where this is just wacky booking from TNA. I don't know what it's going to lead to, but hopefully it's done right. And I mean, I know why you're doing it because you don't have a lot of heels in TNA, but whatever. I think it's going to hurt Booker T more in the long run. Then we went to the third match of the quarterfinals, Kip James and Matt Morgan versus LAX. This one was a bit of an intrigue before it took off because we're going to see this nice big man match here between Hernandez and Matt Morgan. We saw some of that, but man, a fucking huge dude. He dwarfed Hernandez, but it sucked to be Homicide because he had to work with Kip James, so that really sucked. This one was definitely short, under 5 for sure. It started with a tope con hilo by Homicide onto Kip James, and then the finish came when Morgan and James were about to do these big boot spots to Homicide, but Homicide got out of the way. Morgan hit Kip with a bicycle kick, Homicide got the cover, and LAX advances, which is. Then we went to Super Eric and AJ Styles versus Awesome Kong and BG James. This match was probably the best match out of the first round. I mean, they had Kong pair up with Styles so Kong could throw Styles around a lot. Kong hit a crotch claw on there. AJ, he got a Pele kick onto BG James. There was a Swanton Bomb by Super Eric, but he more or less missed BG. And Eric hit the super slam on Kong onto BG James, and the finish came when it looked like Super Eric was gonna he hit a Hurricane Run over the top rope on Kong, and Styles was gonna hit a big frog splash using a springboard frog splash, but he slipped off the top rope and nailed his face hard in the canvas, and so BG popped up and told him, just roll me up quick. Good thinking there by BG James, but that really match a tiny bit because the finish could have been pretty cool and set the crowd out happy to look forward to the next things in the semifinals, but we didn't get that. But Styles and Super Eric move on. Then we went to the TERRORDOME match, Curryman versus Sonjay Dutt versus Consequences Creed versus Sharkboy versus Jimmy Rave versus Kaz versus Alex Shelly versus Chris Sabin versus Johnny Devine versus Black Machismo Jay Lethal. Before the match even officially took place, Jim Cornette come down to announce that the winner of this match would replace Kurt Angle, and not only they would still get their X Division title shot, but they would be in the main event tonight at Sacrifice, which I think is a good thing because then you looked at the card and realized there's only 2 guys you could have. That'd be Lethal and Kaz is the more lenient one. So that, but overall the TERRORDOME structure itself sucked. That structure was terrible. It was basically a red 6 sides of steel with a dome match it, so it looked terrible. And why would you use red? Red is a color that never shows that well on TV and this type of thing, and it was very hard to see the action in there. Overall, the match, big spot fest. The guys were hitting their moves quick. There was nice double teams by Dutt and Lethal and the Guns, as usual. There was a couple of big spots in this one where there was a TERRORDOME spot, but Johnny Devine, he did a Hurricane Rana off the top. There was a reverse incapacitator by Kaz on Devine. There was a super spice rack by Curryman onto Jimmy Rave. And that basically was about it, with the finish coming when Kaz and I think Devine were on the top there, and Kaz kicked Devine off, and Devine fell on everyone, and Kaz got out the hole to win. This match was a bit of spot fest, not a lot of selling for sure went on in here, but still it was an enjoyable match, and it was enjoyable, but it lacked a lot, so this could have been definitely at least for sure a full 3, but it can't give it that. And then we went to the semifinals of the Deuces Wild Tournament. Team 3D versus Rhino and Christian Cage. Pretty good work here. Bobo started to work on the Cage's neck, so it had psychology. Cage and did a nice dive off the top rope to the floor on Team 3D, nice cross-body dive. And they just had some good transactions. One of the wrestling matches of the tag tournament itself. And Team 3D got the win after Devine hit Rhino with a kendo stick after Johnny Devine came down. So that I wasn't a big fan of, but whatever. I mean, Team 3D got through, and it was an established team to get through a game. And then we went to AJ Styles and Super Eric versus LAX. AJ, he was selling his ribs from that big fall in the quarterfinal match against Kong and James. So that was kind of interesting. Eric Young and Hernandez, they had these big power spots, which was, I guess, kind of cool. And then the finish came. There was some nice nice transitions between Styles and Homicide before we get to the finish, which is always good. I mean, I can go see those guys any day of the week. And then the finish came when Styles had Styles had Homicide in an inside cradle, but Hector Guerrero came in, rolled him through, and it looked very because one of Styles' shoulders was not up. But nonetheless, LAX advanced and go on to the finals to meet Team 3D. Then we had the knockout makeover #1 contender ladder match type deal. Velvet Sky versus Angelina Love versus Rhaka Khan versus Salinas versus Crhisty versus ODB versus Roxxi Laveau versus Jacqueline versus Traci Brooks versus Gail Kim. Remember, the immunities here was to Gail Kim, and the eliminations went so fast. It was funny. We got down to Roxxi Laveau and Gail Kim, but there was a stipulation here because if Gail Kim lost this match, then the immunity thing would come into play, and because Angelina Love was the last person eliminated, she would have to stay by for that. So they haven't. Roxxi got busted open hard way on this one because she got hit with a ladder there. There was a nice sunset flip off the ladder by Kim onto Laveau, but it wasn't that nice. And Velvet Sky and Angelina Love came down to help Kim get the win just to make sure that her hair wouldn't get cut. And then as soon as Kim got to a clipboard, she basically ran out and started to fight with the beautiful people, Angelina Love and Velvet Sky, to make sure she didn't turn heel off of this incident, which is always good. And then, yeah, and then they had all the knockouts come out and watch Laveau get her hair cut, and it kind of had the James Mitchell because of the cut that happened, so they were pretty careful doing the hair cutting there. But they were selling it like it was a big death in like TNA or something like that, with all the knockouts being, oh my god, it's getting her hair cut. But in the process, there were huge Fire Russo chants, but Roxxi seemed to get a lot more over because of the ball building thing, so we'll see where that goes from there. Then we went to the finals, the TNA Tag Team Championship match, Team 3D versus LAX. Teams, I liked it when they worked together. I mean, other than that horrible electrified cage match, these guys put on a good match. Homicide started with another tope on Hilo. On Devon, the guys brawled on the floor, and then Johnny Devine came down again. They set up a table. Hector did a double stomp on him through the table, which did look a little sloppy. And then the finish came was after Hernandez, he got the border toss on Devon, Homicide in with the frog splash, and LAX are new TNA Tag Team Champions, which is a good thing, and it ends the stupidest fucking tournament I have ever witnessed in my life. Thank God for that, and it is a good result for that. And then we go to the main event, the TNA World Heavyweight Championship match. Samoa Joe defends against Scott Steiner and the replacement now, Kaz. This was a pretty good match here. I got to give it up to Steiner for what a lot of people talk shit about him. He worked hard in this one. He did a Hurricane Rana on. Joe tried to do a muscle buster on the apron. That didn't happen though. Kaz went for the flexicapacitator twice, but got knocked out and fell in the apron. And Joe got the win with the muscle buster. So these guys worked in a really good match here. Overall, the pay-per-view is a thumbs up, and I'm shocked at how good this one is. I guess they do say if you don't have any expectations, it'll turn out good. Anyways, that's it for me. I'm out. Peace.